For this session, I wrote 52 words. For this session, I wrote 116 words, and my week's total word count is 481 words. For this session, I wrote 288 words. We've got some green tea today. I had my coffee earlier while I was running errands. It has been such a busy day. I have been up since 6 and it's just been nonstop. My husband had his jujitsu alarm turned on accidentally instead of his normal weekday one, but that was divine because I needed to get a lot of stuff done. I managed to finish my writing session in the morning, so that being out of the way, I have just been doing so many errands. I am so shocked that we are at the end of the month. October has truly flown by. I mean, just all of fall has been so rapid. I did manage to pull some cards this morning. I pulled the Green Woman from the Wildwood Tarot, I think it is. Yeah, it's the Wildwood Tarot, one of my favorites. And then I pulled actually the Death card and then the Two of Cups today. I've been wanting to get back into my tarot. I love tarot, but I've kind of backed away from it a little bit because I have been recalibrating my relationship to tarot. I am a pretty adept card reader. I'm pretty good at reading for, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm pretty good at reading like real life situations, only because like I think if you have a strong grasp in the practical realm, it's really kind of easy to do. I think people make prediction to be this like glorious kind of psychic thing, but it really is just a matter of like understanding behavior and behavioral trajectories. So if you have a good like psychological, just even social awareness, it's pretty straightforward and way more simple than people make it out to be. And if you have a strong spiritual background or an awareness of the principles and the practices of the spiritual category, also just a general working knowledge of astrology and just energy overall, it's not difficult to read cards. That said, I have been recalibrating my relationship to the cards because I no longer wish to read for prediction or for prophecy or for like real life situations and context, which is my forte in card reading, but I want to use it more for like imagination and for cultivating my imagination and my connection with my imagination. I have been in a long-going season of reconnecting with my imagination because I feel like I have really disconnected from it over the years, just being so embedded in reality. And at this point, like I no longer find excitement in like real life things. I've learned what I needed to learn from real life, from people, from having once upon a time been a nurse. And part of my new direction in literature and in reading and writing has been to step away from that and learn from a whole new world of books. I am so thankful for the knowledge I've gained through real world experience. I've learned so much about people and life from that, but I am done learning from the world of people, and I'm happy now to be learning from books. So with tarot, now I want to use it to help me connect to more of these surreal planes of experience and just help my day-to-day life like feel more magical. That said, I always have a strong anchor in the practical that will never leave me, because also being in the flesh, like the practical matters, but I do want to make my life more magical, and so I'm reconnecting with my cards. Anyways, let's talk about some books. I went to Goodwill today because I don't want to go tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new moon, it's Friday, and it gets pretty chaotic. So I got my weekly Goodwill trip done today and I scored. So I found 3 books, and then a book I ordered from Pango Books came today as well. I found The Value of Nothing by Raj Patel, and it is about reshaping market society and redefining democracy. I'm gonna read a little snippet from the back. With great lucidity and confidence in a dazzling array of fields, Patel reveals how we inflate the cost of things we can and often should live without, while assigning absolutely no value to the resources we all need to survive. This is a deeply thought-provoking book about the dramatic changes we must make to save the planet from financial madness, argued with so much humor and humanity that the enormous tasks ahead feel both doable and desirable. So that seems really interesting. I want to learn what Patel's framing of economy and democracy are. And actually, there's a little about snippet on the inside of the front cover, so I'll read a little bit of that. Opening with Oscar Wilde's observation that nowadays people know the price of everything and the value of nothing, Patel shows how our faith in prices as a way of valuing the world is misplaced. He reveals the hidden ecological and social costs of a hamburger and asks how we came to have markets in the first place. Both the corporate capture of government and our current financial crisis, Patel argues, are a result of our democratically bankrupt political system. If part 1 asks how we can rebalance society and limit markets, part 2 answers by showing how social organizations in America and around the globe are finding new ways to describe the world's worth. If we don't want the market to price every aspect of our lives, we need to learn how such organizations have discovered democratic ways in which people, and not simply governments, can play a crucial role in deciding how we might share our world and its resources in common. This short, timely, and inspiring book reveals that our current crisis is not simply the result of too much of the wrong kind of economics. While we need to rethink our economic model, Patel argues that the larger failure beneath the food, climate, and economic crises is a political one. If economics is about choices, Patel writes, it isn't often said who gets to make them. The Value of Nothing offers a fresh and accessible way to think about economics and the choices that we will all need to make in order to create a sustainable economy and society. So, very curious about this. And then I found, also by Oscar Williams, who did the anthology of poetry that I absolutely love. He did one for the Pocketbook of Modern Verse, and it's just a beautiful, like, vintage cover. It's got the red, and it's just, okay, the spine didn't crack too much, but anyways, oh yeah, oh well, it's fine. But yeah, so I found that, and then I also found a really adorable version of Hamlet by Shakespeare. I could not resist the very cute cover. I have the complete collection, but I thought this would be really travel friendly. And then for my Pango book, I finally got a copy of The Eye of the World, which is the first book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And I got the UK version of the book. I think the UK has better paper quality, and also, yeah, I just love the size of this book. It's so aesthetic. So I have that. I'm very excited to read this. And then today I actually really wanted to talk about a book I finished recently. It's a short one. This was also a Goodwill find. Passing by Nella Larsen. Wow. Okay, so in such a short little book, so many subjects were covered. I was blown away, and also this is the first paperback I decided to annotate, and I'm really glad I did. This book is so much more than it being about racial camouflage. There are themes of infidelity, there are themes of jealousy, there are themes of hysteria a little bit. The ending, if you've read this book, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on who actually did the deed. But I found this so interesting because I kind of initially going into this book, I thought, okay, well, Claire is going to be the antagonist and Irene is going to be the protagonist. And I actually now don't think that, having finished this book and having reflected on it. It's so interesting how Nella Larsen makes you question who's really the bad guy or bad gal. We learn of Irene that she is very active in her community, and at the beginning, by all means, it seems like she is a great mother and wife. It seems at first that she's also the kind of mother who puts her kids first before herself, and she reiterates this to herself over and over again throughout the book. Compared to Claire, who reminds me of the protagonist in The Awakening by Kate Chupin. I cannot remember her name. She is the mother who is unwilling. She's an unwilling mother. Claire is the kind of mother who regrets being a mother. And so off the bat, it seems very clear like who the bad egg is and who the good one is. And disclaimer, I'm using good or bad to differentiate who the hero or the anti-hero is. There is no judgment for any of these fictional women's lives. Like, we all make our choices and we all have our reasons for them, whether other people agree or disagree. There's no judgment. Anyways, that's the setup. And then throughout the story, it becomes rather ambiguous who is the better character and who is the actual worse one. There is a lot of judgment that's passed on Claire in this story for her choices to keep her racial background under wraps in utmost secrecy, to the point where she's had to sever ties with her other world. Let me just read a snippet from the back. Claire Kendry is living on the edge. Light-skinned, elegant, and ambitious, she is married to a racist white man, unaware of her African-American heritage, and has severed all ties to her past after deciding to pass as a white woman. Claire's childhood friend, Irene Redfield, just as light-skinned, has chosen to remain within the African-American community and is simultaneously allured and repelled by Claire's risky decision to engage in racial masquerade for personal and societal gain. So that is the premise. Claire married a white man who has no idea of her background, and Irene married a man of mixed race who is unable to pass as a white man as she is able to pass as a white woman. And though Irene seemed so devoted to her family at first, we learn that she has made a lot of these family-oriented choices for herself and her comfort and her sense of stability. Tensions arise in her marriage, and it makes you wonder, that even though she married a man of mixed race, because she was not ashamed, or she is not ashamed of her background, she has no empathy for her husband's struggles and challenges, which are so different from hers, because she passes as a white woman and he does not pass for a white man. So you see that Irene has a lot of independence. She has a lot of freedom to go and do as she pleases, in the limitations of also being a woman in that time frame. But her husband doesn't. She has 2 kids, both boys. One passes as a white boy and the other does not. Irene's husband, Brian, wants to raise their kids in accord with the real world and teach them to see the world as it is in all of its flummox and adversity. Like, he wants to expose his boys to the realities of the world because he wants them to have tough skin and to be prepared for it. But one of his boys passes as a white boy and the other doesn't. And so Brian has empathy for his son, who will always face those kinds of racial challenges that he himself still faces. And Irene cannot agree with what he wants to teach his boys, and therein is this great tension in their marriage and parenting. Irene is always arguing that she's thinking about her boys and the best and what's best for them, and she wants to raise them at this certain, level away from the harsh realities of the world. And Brian vehemently disagrees, but she doesn't really give him a say also. She is rather stubborn and closed off with him to the point where he feels he can't even talk to her. So we have Irene, who is unashamed of her racial background, and she's an active member of her community, but she actually has no real empathy for the struggles of her husband, who cannot pass like she can in their world. So she also has an entitlement complex. We contrast Irene's story with Claire's story, who it's really up in the air whether she really knew her husband was racist before she married him. I can see it that maybe she saw hints but overlooked it when they were dating because she was eager to get settled down and find a measure of security through marriage. There are a lot of things that people don't learn about each other in the courtship phase of dating. So I can see it being plausible that Claire may not have been fully aware the extent of her husband's racist attitudes. And the question arises, is it really so wrong of her to want security in life, especially her background being as difficult as it was with a single parent who it seemed like they did not have a good relationship, who also, she was orphaned really young. And even though Claire had to sever ties with her community for safety when she discovered her husband was supremely racist, she still made her way back, even though it required her to sneak around. Ultimately, I think people do what they think is best, and what someone thinks is best may not be someone else's version of what's best, but we all do what we think is best and we think is required for the continuity of our best life. On another note, I thought that passing really amplified the subject of severance of ties with people of your past. And it doesn't have to be about race. It can be about leaving behind tradition. It can be about leaving behind toxic family members, leaving behind toxic relationships, just across the board. So I thought this book really brought to light an angle of what that experience is like and the emotional and psychological difficulties that one faces in breaking off ties. That is it for this vlog, and I will see you in the next one.